It looked like an old steel bulkhead. The kind you would find in the interior of an old military vessel, with those large wheels that you have to turn to open the door. Over 10,000 meters of depth and 15,200 psi is what our equipment measured. To find anything man-made at that depth was inconceivable. I couldn't believe it. It was on the side of an especially steep drop. The rectangle of steel, while difficult to spot, didn't exactly appear natural. It stood out to me, despite the total lack of visibility. I immediately turned to my partner. "It's crazy how the darkness fucks with your brain if you stare into it long enough," I said. The submersible was a research submarine, designed for a two-man crew, but there was barely enough space for one. Stanley was the man next to me. He was my co-pilot and research assistant. "I know what you're talking about," said Stanley with a smile. "That rock looks like a cabin door. It's got the wheel and everything." "It's exactly what I'm talking about." I leaned in to take a closer look. Look how smooth it is, too. It seemed we both knew that we had to take a closer look. I slowed the descent of the ship and intensified the headlights. There, in the middle of a steep, jagged cliff over 10,000 meters below the ocean surface, was a door. It was impossible to mistake it for a rock formation. It had perfectly cut edges, rounded, smoothed out, completely symmetrical. It had the wheel in the center, too, which coincided with no rock that I'd ever seen. Without a doubt, it was a door. A steel bulkhead. "How in the world?" I said. "Shipwreck? Here? Can't be in such a perfect condition." I was whispering. We continued our slow descent until the bulkhead was directly in front of us. I halted the submarine with the beams pointing directly at the door. "I'll take some pictures and send them up along with some data," I told Stanley. I heard Stanley clicking at the machinery. I stood still, staring into the monitor in front of me. The submarine was very small. It didn't have a window to the outside. Our exterior was displayed on a small screen. I leaned in to get a closer look. My eyes widened. Wait, Stanley," I said. Stanley faced me. "Bottom right. Look." Stanley turned his head and looked into the monitor. There, engraved on the surface of the door, near the bottom right, was a very short collection of images. I was amazed that we'd missed them before, but as I intensified the headlights again, there could be no doubt that they were there. One of them caught my attention. It was one in the middle, the third drawing. Very minimalistic, very small, but it was the outline of a skull, a human skull. Looked more like a caricature. Forehead was a little too round, the chin was slightly too short. It looked like a human skull drawn from memory, or at least similar to one. But the other ones, the other 5 pictures, were even more unsettling. The first one, though a little wide, looked like some prehistoric skeleton or a representation of a fossil. From there, the drawings were nearly incomprehensible. One was a long, angular skull that coincided with no animal I'd ever seen. Another looked like the depiction of a bug, maybe a wasp or a mantis, only bony and cadaverous. The one thing the images had in common was that, in some way, they all looked like skulls. "What the fuck?" Stanley whispered. Take the pictures." I was staring into the monitor. I watched Stanley take a new snapshot, then turned to his computer. He began typing and transferring data from the submersible. "All right, sending," he said. "What do you think they are?" And I was hypnotized. I couldn't stop looking at the door and creatures engraved onto it. Probably a warning, like signs representing a hazard," I said. The middle one looks like a human skull. Whatever was in there, it didn't take a genius to understand that we weren't supposed to go inside. The lock on the outside, the depictions, the depth itself told us everything. Yeah, Alex, I heard Stanley say, and I snapped out of my trance. It only makes sense to open it. I snapped my head to the side. Are you insane? It absolutely does not. I raised my voice slightly. Stan stood still, looked confused. I didn't think I would need to explain myself, and I sighed. It's a steel bulkhead, 10,000 meters below the ocean surface, with a half dozen depictions of animal-like skeletons, of which all but one are familiar. Sealed from the outside. You want to open it? No. Maybe we should get the green light first. I guess. I already asked the crew, he said. Yeah. Well, the crew is going to take my side, I promise you, I said, and Stanley shrugged. It's probably nuclear waste or something like that. And it's definitely not meant to be opened. Stanley looked back at me. Doors to nuclear waste don't have doorknobs, Stanley said. They're sealed airtight, welded shut, bared with concrete. He had a point. But before I could say anything in response, a message arrived. Proceed. We stared in confusion. They're telling us to open the door, Stanley said. No, they're telling us to proceed with our original mission. Isn't that obvious? I responded. The response was extremely odd. We typically have received detailed instructions, or at least a very well-structured professional response. Alex moved the submarine forward. I need to get close enough to use the mechanical arms, he said. I was shocked. You're telling me that a group of highly trained, intelligent research scientists just gave us the go-ahead to open a watertight door with 15,000 psi of pressure? The message says proceed. That's the literal definition of a go-ahead. Send another one. Tell them to be clear this time, I told him. I wasn't even sure why I was entertaining the idea. I heard him typing, and I watched him closely this time. Sure enough, he asked the crew to elaborate and sent the message. We waited in silence for a few moments. We'd been delayed enough already. I couldn't wait to leave the door behind. And just then, the message arrived. Open the door. My eyes went wide. Something about the message made my blood freeze. It was unlike any message we'd received. Told you, Alex. Now move the submarine forward. Stanley was impatient. Something's wrong. They wouldn't have sent Alex! Stanley screamed. The extremely small cabin made the sound seem louder than it should have been. He caught me off guard. Stanley, I can't do that. You have to understand how unprofessional such a response is. The team would not have sent that. Well, they just did. Are you refusing orders? This isn't a military vessel, Stanley. I'm still the captain of this vessel, I said. Stanley didn't seem happy. He was anxious somehow, and he furrowed his brow in a mixture of anger and confusion. Alex, if you don't move the sub forward, I will. I was shocked. Stanley, listen to me. Alex, if you don't move the submersible forward, I will. Suddenly, he grabbed my wrist and squeezed. We have to go ahead, Alex. Move the sub. I'd never seen him like this. Stanley was a large man, and his strength was far above mine, but he'd always been the kindest, most lighthearted person on the team. What are you doing? Let go of me. Suddenly, he lunged forward and tried to stand. The space was too small for him to stand, and his back hit the ceiling of the cabin. His hand was still around my wrist, and his free hand was moving for the control panel. I twisted my body and managed to get out from under him. I pushed him away while having my back to the wall. It worked with great effort. He fell back in his seat. "Move the ship forward," he screamed, spit flying from his lips as he did. "Stanley, calm down." He seemed to be in a frenzy. His chest rose and fell rapidly, and he gripped his chair so hard that his fingernails dug into the cushions. "Stan, what's the matter with you?" I grabbed my wrist with my other hand, massaging the area. He'd scratched the skin on my wrist, and gripped so tight the flesh was turning red. Stanley started, taking deep breaths between pauses. I know that we have to get closer, or I can't use the mechanical arms to open the door." "But why do you want to open the door?" I said in disbelief. He made a nasty expression, as if I'd said something unreasonable. He took a sharp breath through his teeth. "Alex, for the last time, if you don't move the submersible forward, I will," he said. I saw him grip the armrest of his chair even harder. "Stanley, it would be illogical to open..." He pushed himself off his chair and slammed into me. I was pushed back and my head slammed against the wall behind me. I grabbed the back of my head in pain. By the time I recovered from the impact, I saw Stanley on the control panel. The submarine was moving forward. I leaned forward, but Stanley was still leaning into my chair, and his knee was pushing me down. I tried to push him away, but the space was so small that his back was against the ceiling, and there was no space to push him towards. I decided to grab his hands instead and pull them away from the controls. I pulled at his hand and managed to shift it away from the lever. The rapid motion made the submarine jolt forward, and the sub crashed against the cliffside. We were thrown forward violently, and Stanley's body smashed into the main monitor. He turned around at me, and his face was entirely red. The look on his face was savage. He was breathing through his teeth, and his eyes were nothing but pupils. He jumped towards me, slamming into me and scratching me with his nails. I brought my knee up and smashed it against his ribcage. He screamed, but he continued grabbing at my throat, clawing with his nails, and then his right hand was able to close around my neck, and he squeezed with all the strength that he had. I couldn't comprehend what was happening, but I wasn't going to try to talk my way out of it anymore. Stanley was my friend, but this couldn't have been the same man as before. I hit him as hard as I could with my knee, but his grip didn't loosen. Though he screamed in fury, I tried again and again, all of my hits landing perfectly, but he wouldn't let go. The pressure inside of my head increased. It felt as if every vein in my head was about to explode. I hit him again, and I was sure that I had felt his rib crack. Still, he only screamed and tightened his grip. My vision was fading. I had to think of something. I saw the monitor, the one displaying the exterior. Stanley had smashed into it, and the support had been destroyed, but it was still connected to its cable. I reached out and grabbed it, pulled at it until the cable snapped, and the heavy monitor came loose, brought it up and slammed down, connecting with the back of his neck. Stanley went limp, falling on my chest. I gasped frantically, holding my throat. I write this now, sitting in silence, trying to process what's just happened. The monitor's gone, the submarine sight is gone. Stanley's body's limp against me as I've been unable to push him away in the cramped space. It's now claustrophobic. The only camera left is the one that's connected to the claw of a mechanical arm outside. I'm writing this on Stanley's computer. As I do, I keep receiving the same exact message. Turn the wheel. The apparatus that controls the mechanical arm outside is still intact. I know that if I simply reach over and use the small camera to find the wheel, I can open the door. I want to move the submersible away, to start my ascent to the surface. Trust me, I do, but I can't. The ballast systems, no matter what I do, they won't respond. I'm stuck here. I've asked for help, but I only received the same message. Turn the wheel. I'm sorry. I say that because after all of this, after what happened to Stanley, and without knowing why, I really want to listen. I really want to turn the wheel. And worst of all, I don't even know why. Hey there kids, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and I just wanted to tell you thank you so much for watching tonight's video or for listening to tonight's episode of the podcast. And as always, I want to give a very big thank you to everybody who supports me over at Patreon. That's patreon.com/MrCreepyPasta. I cannot thank you guys enough. You guys have been there when I'm struggling like I have over the past year, and it sincerely helps me stay alive. So thank you guys so much for being supporters. That goes for everybody who was down in the description, as well as AcidSystem, BallarmsTheRat, Blake Rattler, Mendoza, Brenna, BrimstonePandemonium, Caltuna, Chainsmoker Dealer, ChicagoHitman, CoryxKenshin, Cronut508, CrusaderChocobo, CursepoxPrimarch, Dakota Best, Poulsen, Dante Kinkade, Kraus, Ellie Hutmire, Enchanted Buns, Estebean, Gemma, HIDive nephew, Kimbo Jerry, Hour Minute Seconds Time, Jay Keems, Jedis Pet, Jordan Humble, King Crab, Mr. Marcus Blitz, Old Penguin, Peaceful Buddha, Psychomel, Red Shadowcat, Remember the Sun, Rinku Star, Salty Surprise, Samara Line, Seclude, Simba's Bloody Mojo, Sky Harbor, Smiley the Psychotic, Sullyman, Tali Sue, the Chavez Brothers. Thank you so much. And honestly, thank you to everybody, even those guys that are in there for just $1. It really helps me out. Once again, that's patreon.com/MrCreepyPasta. Or if you guys like to just listen, honestly, that helps me out a lot too. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And sweet dreams.